Everyone, today is the 19th of February 2024. Kind of a special day for me. I have now been around the sun a grand total of 60 times. So let's hope I have a few more revolutions around that glowing fiery ball left in me, but we'll see what happens. One of the books I recently bought is the Elliot Wave Principle, written by Frost and Robert Prechter. And they wrote this book back in 1978. And this book was their interpretation of the work done by Ralph Elliott in the 1930s. And in the opening chapters of the Elliott Wave Principle, the authors very clearly lay out the rules that Elliott had devised in the 1930s when he studied the price data of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Now, I've tried years ago following this Elliott Wave stuff, and I just gave up on it. But I realize now that the secret is following their rules. And if you follow the rules, it actually helps you when you lay out the wave counts, and it prevents you from making mistakes and getting lost in the weeds. So I do recommend purchasing the book. It's available on Amazon. It was not terribly expensive. And I'm going to see if I can make more use of it going forward. So basically what Prechter is saying is that there are motive waves and corrective waves. A motive wave will exhibit something like 5 waves to move the price higher, and then price will correct in an ABC 3-wave pattern lower. And then after that, if it's a strong bull market, the price can continue and post another 5 waves and an ABC pattern to correct, and it can even continue another 5 waves, and it can go on for quite a long time in a very strong bull market. Now, we have had a very strong bull market since the financial crisis of 2008, and after the markets bottomed in early 09, we had years and years of that quantitative easing and the Fed shoveling money into the financial system and ramping up the liquidity. And so when you start doing the wave counts on the S&P 500, they do go on for quite a long time. And from where we are right now that I can see is we are due for a wave down, and it's not going to be the end of the world, as some people are suggesting. It is going to be a correction, probably not severe, and then we will later this spring, I'm looking potentially at the end of May sometime, to get back on track with another pattern of advances with Elliott Wave Theory. So we need some sort of a healthy pullback anytime now. And even if it only lasts for a couple months, perfect, I'll take it. And that will keep us on track then with what I think is the wave pattern that I have identified on the S&P using the rules in Prechter's book. What I want to do for you in this short video, however, is I want to show you an example of the numbering pattern, and I want to do it on an individual stock. So the one I've picked is Nvidia. It's in the news lately, and it's going to be in the news Wednesday of this week, February 21st. That's when they release their earnings after the market closes. And make no mistake about it, they're going to tell you that they've made money, and lots of it. That's why the price of Nvidia has been going sky high lately, because people on Wall Street know these guys are just kicking it. However, they also will be offering some guidance going forward, and now there are competitors that are starting to come onto the landscape. And I just heard of one today, SoftBank, South Korean entity, is looking at spending, I think it's $100 billion to start basically doing what Nvidia is doing. And remember that Nvidia doesn't physically make the chips. They design them. and then they have them made as on a contract basis by Taiwan Semiconductor. So really, for a competitor to say that they're going to challenge Nvidia, it's actually easier than it might appear, because they're physically not making anything. They're just designing the chips. So I expect Nvidia, it's not going to double from here, because as competitors come onto the landscape, it's going to get harder and harder for these guys to keep their earnings growing at a fast clip. So anyways, what I've done is gone back to October of 2022, and I've used that as a starting point on Nvidia. And you can see that from October of 22, price advanced to a turning point. We call that wave 1. And then it fell and it made an inflection point. We call that downward move wave 2. And then it posted a sizable advance all the way up here to wave number 3 in July of 2023. Had a little corrective pullback to wave 4, moved up to wave number 5, and then it did the ABC corrective pattern. So that's a total then of 5 motive waves, 3 corrective waves. That's exactly what Prechter talks about in the book. And now most recently we've gone wave number 1, wave number 2, and a significant wave number 3. And as he points out in the book, it is very common, very typical for wave 3 to be the strongest of the waves in the pattern. And as I said, we're looking now for a wave number 4 to take us down, and then we will start a wave number 5 going up. And I'm hoping that Wednesday, when Nvidia comes out with its earnings, that hopefully will kickstart this downward pattern, and it's not going to be severe, but it will be some sort of a minor correction, and then we can look forward to price going a little bit higher. Now, as the price goes higher after a correction, that actually could be the end of it, because as they say in the book, when price of a stock or an index or a commodity does 5 waves and then 3 waves corrections, 5 waves and 3 waves corrections, a lot of times it will, in its final push to the upside, will simply post a 5-wave pattern, and then you can actually flip over into a bear market pattern and start doing 5 waves down and 3 corrective waves, and 5 waves down and 3 corrective waves. So we're getting close to a tipping point here on Nvidia. Now, the one thing that they talk about in the book is how a lot of these waves are actually related to one another by Fibonacci mathematics. And I just did some very quick back of the envelope math here. The distance traveled from the peak of what we call number 1 down to the valley where we have number 2. That distance, which is not a huge amount, actually is related then to the amount that the stock advanced between 0.2 and 0.3. It's actually a Fibonacci extension of 9.68 times. So yes, I can see that there is Fibonacci math involved here, and I've looked at a few of the other ones, and yeah, sure enough. Now, when I started reading in their book about Fibonacci math, the one thing that immediately triggered in my brain was, I've talked about this in my Udemy online courses. I've written about this in my financial almanacs. The spatial distribution of the planets in our cosmos is laid out according to the Fibonacci sequence, or very, very nearly the Fibonacci sequence. So I thought, okay, if Fibonacci math is at work here with these waves, is it possible that we've got some astrology going on behind the scenes? So I decided, let's check it out. First thing I did is I generated the IPO first trade horoscope for Nvidia, and it made its IPO on the 22nd of January, 1999. Now, the one thing that I noticed in the horoscope wheel is there was a triangular pattern. It had an apex at the midheaven, Saturn, and the node. There's another triangle pattern in there if you look closely, and it's got an apex at Saturn, Mars, and the Sun. And of course, don't forget that you've got your ascendant point at 21 of Pisces in there as well. So then I said to myself, okay, is it possible that these various inflection points that define the Elliott wave counts, is it possible that there was something triggering or passing or transiting these various apex points in these triangles? And that was the basis then of a quick little study that I did, and I'm going to show you what I found. All right, let's take a look at points 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, it turns out the moon is actually the overriding factor here. So at point number 1, moon was passing the natal node. Well, the node is one of the apex points of one of the triangles in that horoscope wheel. Point number 2, moon was passing natal Saturn. Again, Saturn was one of the apex points. Point number 3, moon was at the natal node. Point number 4, moon was at the natal node. Point number 5, moon was at the natal ascendant. Wow, unbelievable. So now you've got 5 points as per Elliott Wave Theory laid out on the chart, and each of them correspond to an astrology event. Let's take a little bit closer look here at the next points. All right, so the next 3 that I want to look at are your 3-wave corrective pattern, A, B, and C. Sure enough, here we go again. Point A, moon is at the natal midheaven. Point B, moon is at the natal node, and at the same time you had Mars at natal Mars. And recall that Mars was one of the apex points in the triangular patterns in that horoscope wheel. And point C, moon is at your natal Saturn. So there's 3 more, all aligning to movements of the moon passing key points in the horoscope wheel. And that brings us then to the last bit of the chart where we've got point number 1, point number 2, and point number 3. So point number 1 is moon at the natal ascendant. Point number 2, moon at the natal node. Point number 3, moon at natal Saturn. Now, I'm going to be watching very carefully what happens on Wednesday. I'm actually anticipating the price of Nvidia starting to come down. I think what we may have here is hopefully a case of, buy the rumor, sell the news. And if the price wants to come down and correct into point number 4, it's not going to be a severe correction. It will be modest. So when could point number 4 possibly occur? Well, it could occur if I've done this right, and if I've laid all of these points out correctly. It could occur on the 4th of March with moon passing natal midheaven. It could occur on the 9th of March with sun passing the natal ascendant and moon passing the natal ascendant, or it could occur on the 12th of March with moon passing the natal Saturn. And then you'd have to look ahead. If this all, comes to pass, it will start to advance then towards a point number 5 somewhere, and you can use Fibonacci math, and you can start to anticipate where that point 5 ultimately might be, and you can sort of use this Elliott wave stuff in combination with astrology as somewhat of a predictive tool. But I'm certainly impressed with how it all pertains to Fibonacci and how the astrology quietly is at work in the background. And I'm going to be looking at more charts of individual stocks, individual commodities, and I'm going to be doing some more of these short videos just to show you the power then, not only of astrology, which I think you already know, but how that ties in with these advances and corrections following Elliott wave patterns. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of this here, but please do keep in touch and visit me at investingsuccess.ca. And I thank you kindly for taking the time to watch this short little video today. And as I say, I will be posting more on the subject of Elliott Wave patterns and how they tie to astrology of a particular stock or a particular commodity. So thanks for watching, and you have yourselves a wonderful day. Thanks.